Hello everyone, my name is Aaron and this is the Game Day Hour. Yes, it's been a long time since I've been gone. I've been working on the final semester of school and I was having some poor grades, so I had to kind of shut the podcast down. But it's time to resume the podcast and it's time to push out episodes for you guys. And this one is one that's very exciting to me because I won my fantasy league. As you guys remember, if you were here in the beginning, I've basically been doing fantasy football throughout the entire summer up until the football season started, and I was doing the videos about my fantasy teams, and I ended up winning the championship. So in today's episode, I'm going to take you through each and every single game, short and brief, but every single game, and tell you how I lost or how I won and how I got to the fantasy championship. So without further ado, let's get started. By the way, this is going to be a multiple parter because I'm going to go individually to each position, like quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, defense, kickers. And once I do that, I'll send the videos out. I'll put it on TikTok. So watch out for all my social medias. Of course, they're going to be in the description below. So yeah, let's get started. Let's take this back to the beginning. I did not have a good and strong start to the year, and in week one, I lost by 20 in a high scoring match to who would I eventually play in the championship game. But in this game, I thought my players played pretty well. It's just his players outplayed me. Because Justin Herbert at 28, okay, that's a little bit lower than he normally scores in this league. But Nick Chubb had 20, CeeDee Lamb had 10, ETN had 18, Smith had 10, and San Francisco had 38. I mean, we played great in that game. But of course, it's hard to overcome a New Orleans 30, a Calvin Ridley 24, and especially a Tyreek Hill 51. So I lost, and I thought I was about to start having the same role as I had last season. But following after week 5, things start to change. But until then, let's just see how the first 4 weeks started. I would eventually turn it around in week 2 and win 128 to 89. Justin Herbert had 37, Nick Chubb had 6, and it was that game where Nick Chubb was out for the year with that gruesome leg injury he suffered against Pittsburgh. But in spite of that, because that's a terrible injury, I hope he's able to come back. I don't know if he's going to be very high on the draft if that's what's going to happen to his knees, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But even though low scoring from Chubb and ETN, Devonta Smith had 32, Rashid Shaheed had 12, CeeDee Lamb had 22, and Justin Tucker had 11. It was a pretty good game, and my opponent's players, 15, 12, 11, 11, 18, 14, it was consistent scoring, but not high enough. I had a lot more high scoring and more impactful games than he did, so that helped me go to 1-1. Week 3, I got blown out, and I made some poor decisions in this week. I started Dak Prescott against Arizona. He only gave me 22. Justin Herbert played Minnesota, and he dropped 64. Now, even if I were to have switched the players there, I still wouldn't have won. I don't believe I would have. No, I don't. I would have lost by 11. But I would have been a lot closer and probably had a better chance. But anyways, I had 22. Jerome Ford, I had the backup to Nick Chubb. He had 16. ETN had 16. Evans, who I had for a bit, had 12. And the San Francisco 49ers defense had 29. Pretty good. And he scored this high amount of points, despite Dallas having negative 10 against Arizona. But Kirk Cousins, Devonta Adams, and Deebo Samuel lit up the scoreboard. Stephon Diggs and James Cook did their thing, and so did Brandon Aubrey. So ultimately, you know, he had a better game, a better team that day. So I went down to 1-2. And then we had week 4, and right here I started to believe that this was about to get ugly for me this year, because now I dropped to 1-3. I lose 82 to 112. Herbert had 29, Lamb had 10, Smith had 10, and Shaheed had 11. Those were my only high scorers, but despite him having generally low scoring teams that week, Cleveland had 14, Jefferson had 23, and Josh Allen had 60 against Miami. So that was rough. Very, very rough for me. But you know what? It's okay, because ever since week 4, things changed. I'd go on to win week 5, 139 to 102. And the top scores for me, Brees Hall had 47 against Denver. Travis Etienne had 39, and the New York Jets defense, who I ended up picking up to be the backup to the Niners defense, had 27. But Prescott Lamb, 14 points combined against the Niners. It was not a pretty sight to see. But my opponent, even though he had the best duo at the time, Mahomes and Kelsey, you can argue it was Hill and Tagovailoa, but you can easily say Mahomes and Kelsey. They had 45 combined, and A-Chain had 44, but Washington's defense had negative 15, and that's what ultimately hurt him. That would bring me up to 2-3, and by the way, this was against the commissioner of the league, so I'm happy I got this one. But 2-3, moving on to week 6, I ended up winning again, 138 to 125, because consistent scoring down the line. 5 players scored 19 points. CeeDee Lamb, Travis Etienne, Rashid Shaheed, Justin Tucker, San Francisco all had 19, with Herbert dropping 28 and Brees Hall dropping 14. We're not even going to talk about Gabriel Davis. I was beginning to drop this guy soon. But then my opponent had Jalen Hurts 31 and DeAndre Swift 10. Didn't get that high scoring because that was the Eagles' first loss of the year against the Jets. He also had Cooper Kupp at 28, Keenan Allen at 17, Miami at 17, Nick Folk at 10, but that wasn't enough to beat me. So 3-3 on the year, and now I'm finally starting to catch my groove. Then this was a nail-biting week for week 7, a low-scoring 85 to 75 affair. It comes down to the defenses playing as poorly as they did, because in our league, our defenses start off with 35 points based on the amount of yards given and the amount of points allowed. So they have 35, and then it's just either down bad or pretty good up from there, but generally never in between. And we were really down bad in this one. Jacksonville -3, San Francisco -5. But what really stood out was, again, the consistent scoring. Mike Evans 20, Jerome Ford 20, and Justin Herbert and Travis Etienne had 19. On the opposite side, he had 3 high scorers, but then just complete low scoring after that. You had Amon-Ra St. Brown with 18, Christian McCaffrey with 20, and Jordan Love with 24. So, I don't know. The high and consistent scoring is really what helped me. And keep an eye out for Jordan Love. That's a name that will be important in the future of the season. But at this point, he lost to me 4-3. And then an extremely dominant win in week 8, 201 to 133. Herbert with 40, Lamb with 46, the Jets with 42, Travis Etienne with 30. It was dominant. And Brees Hall with 22. Just outright demolition of my opponent. And he had a good game too, 133 at Seattle with 22, Derrick Henry with 20, Mixon with 19, George Kittle with 22, Lamar Jackson with 17, who might win MVP this year. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit towards the end of the video. Maybe I have questions based on it, because I'm going to be answering some questions later, Q&A style, towards the end of the episode. So if you want to have your questions on, just send me them via social media, and I'll be sure to read them. But yeah, lastly, this with the last thoughts, I don't really score 200 often. Last season, I only scored it one time. That was in week 2, and then after that, I had a bad year. But 201 this week, and it's not the last time I hit 200. Then another big win, 130 to 95 in week 9. At this point, I'm 6-3. Started off the year 1-3, won 5 in a row. Despite Herbert and Hall having bad games, CeeDee Lamb went off for 36, and the Las Vegas defense against the Giants went off for 47. On the opposite side, this was actually against my dad in the league, Joe Burrow had 43, but after that, nothing huge and significant. Good games here and there, but yeah, he kind of got screwed over the rest of his team, and Joe Burrow was his MVP that day. But my team, again, consistent scoring across to have the win, which is kind of what I go through. I don't go through the high baller and then have everybody else, crap out. I want to have a team that is good enough to score consistently above the double digits across the board, and have a few have that blow-up game. That's what I look for in these teams. Again, another win. This time, I get my revenge after the week 1 loss by 20. I win by 20 against my opponent. 157-137. Justin Herbert with 47, CeeDee Lamb with 46, the Jets with 21, and Javonte Williams, who I recently picked up, got 19. So, have you noticed that I've been having Rashid Shaheed on this roster for a while, and that's because he was a late draft pick for me, but his dual scoring both offense and kickoff and punt returns has really helped this year. He put up 9, it was pretty respectable. And on the opposite side, it was a complete and utter equal scoring. Again, Geno Smith with 50, Robinson with 19, Wilson with 12, Ayuk with 11, Montgomery with 30, and New Orleans with 10. But it's because I had more high scores on a consistent basis that I ended up bringing in that win. But have you noticed there wasn't Tyreek Hill? This was during the Dolphins bye week, so I dodged a major bullet with the Dolphins being on bye. So that's what ultimately helped. And again, another win, 112-91 in Week 11. Justin Herbert with 41, Breece Hall with 13, Tucker with 11, and San Francisco with 25 against Dak Prescott. Yes, I had Prescott. And in Week 5, after that embarrassing loss to San Francisco, I dropped him. I thought, this offense is not going to accommodate for Dak Prescott. He's not doing the right thing, being a pocket passer and not moving around as often as he did. At this point in the season when I played him, he was the leading MVP in my opinion, because ever since that Niners game, he has just been straight up going off. But against Carolina, he kind of hit a road stump with a pretty good pass defense, despite Carolina not being a great team overall. But then 24, Pollard had 13, Moore had 18, and Detroit had 14. So he didn't get super high scores. Dak Prescott was his best player, and that was about it. Again, I still have not suffered a loss since Week 4. Then I went in Week 12, 115-101. Again, another pretty good scoring game. Herbert with 21, CeeDee Lamb with 13, Pacheco with 20. Oh, wait. Isaiah Pacheco? That's right. In between Week 11 and Week 12, I made a trade with my dad, and I gave up Mike Evans, who, looking back, I kind of wish I didn't give up. But it is what it is, because if I was going to get a good player, I had to give a good player in return. And I also gave up Jerome Ford. In return, I got George Pickens and Isaiah Pacheco. Pickens did not stay on my team for much long, but Pacheco was nearly in the starting lineup almost every single week. Pacheco had 20. Actually, he was in my lineup last week, but he was on the bench. That was when they played the Eagles. He did pretty good then, but this was his first start. So he had 20. Along with Justin Tucker having 10 and San Francisco having 39, Shaheed put up 0. Ouch. But luckily, there, Adam Thielen put up 0 as well. But Kyler Murray, welcome back, had 29. Stephon Diggs with 13. And the Dallas defense with 28 was not enough for them to have the win. Again, I've been on this ginormous win streak. That's 8 games now. 2 weeks prior to the playoffs, I win a big 157-106. Herbert and Etienne played okay, 14 and 13, that's 27 combined. So CeeDee Lamb had 28, Pacheco had 26, Devonta Smith had 18, and the Jets defense had 38, with Matt Gay having 14. So, again, consistent scoring across the board, and in my league, I start to realize this. If you have a really good defense, that is a good indication that you're going to be a top team. And I had the Niners and the Jets, 2 absolutely solid defenses. So I was kind of happy there. My opponent had Russell Wilson with 27, Sam Laporta with 28, Puka Nacua, which, by the way, I don't know where this guy came from, but he's on my draft board next year because he is a playmaker. If you had Nacua this year and you knew he was going to be great, or you picked him up from free agency, kudos to you. He was a really good pick. And then lastly, I had Raheem Mostert with 10. But of course, Cleveland, -6. The defense hurts a lot. That's a 44-point swing right there. So that's ultimately what hurt his team there. And then the last week, 134-83. I end off the year 11-3 before the playoffs. But look who my quarterback is, Jordan Love, 17. So what ended up happening was I picked up Love to back up Herbert going into the playoffs. But in this very week, Justin Herbert got injured against the Raiders, and he could no longer play. Actually, wait, no, it was against the Broncos. Sorry. But ultimately what happened was pretty sure it was a finger injury and he had to get surgery out for the year. So then Jordan Love had to be my starter going forward. But again, consistent scoring across this week. Love had 17, Etienne had 12, Lamb with 13, Javonte Williams with 14, Drake London, who I started for 1 week, had 37. Wow. Justin Tucker with 12, and San Francisco with 23. And then I was against the commissioner again. Patrick Mahomes with 22, Travis Kelce with 11, Kyron Williams with 19, and Houston with 10. By the way, Kyron Williams, he's going to do some great things next season all the way through with the Los Angeles Rams. They need to keep him and use him as much as they can because he is a great threat. And I knew him from his time at Notre Dame. That guy can play. So I'm glad that the Rams gave him a shot. But ultimately, I had more consistent scoring across the game for that week. So that's why I had, again, another win. And I started the year off 1-3 and then won 10 in a row following that. I would not play in the first week of the playoffs, the quarterfinals, because I had the second seed and the top two seeds. They ultimately will not play. But that was great for me because ultimately I had a bad week in that quarterfinals, which would then lead to the semifinals. So this was probably the closest game this year, and I'm going to let you know right now, I was down 136 to 156 going into Monday night, and I had two players left, Isaiah Pacheco and Justin Tucker. Pacheco got injured after having one touchdown. This was when the Chiefs lost to the Raiders, and God, that was an awful game for Kansas City. But again, consistent scoring, big-time scoring across the board for me. Love had 33 against Carolina. CeeDee Lamb had 31. Breece Hall had 36. The Jets had 17. It could have been better. And Shaheed had 18 to start the week off. So then I'm down, I'm now 136. Now I was down 143 to 156. Oh, no, I was down 144 to 156. So that means I was down 137 to 156 going into the Monday. And Justin Tucker against the San Francisco 49ers puts up 16 points. He basically tied me at halftime of that game. He just had so many field goals, and it really, really helped me when I got to escape alive after Josh Allen put up 37 against... Oh, wait, no. This was a different week. Never mind. But Josh Allen had 37. Oh, yeah, this was against the Chargers. Josh Allen had 37 against the Chargers. Buffalo had 19. Justin Jefferson had 20. Aaron Jones with 20. T. Higgins with 33. And Raheem Mostert with 10. So very equal scoring across the board. And I just barely get it out to go to the championship game. But that was a very stressful and good game. But what they tell you very often is that it's best to save your best for last. I could have said that a lot better. I am so sorry. The championship, one of the most lopsided and biggest wins I've ever had. I won 219 to 114 against the player that beat me in week 1 to start the season off. This time, he finally put in Tua. If he put in Tua that week 1, he would have beat me by a lot more. But in this week, absolute explosion across the board. Jordan Love with 41 against Minnesota. Etienne with 36 against Carolina. CeeDee Lamb with 50 against Detroit. Breece Hall with 21 against Cleveland. Isaiah Pacheco with 30 against Cincinnati. San Francisco with 26 against Washington. And those players alone, I didn't need Justin Tucker or Rashid Shaheed. They combined for 15. Tua had 24. Brandon had 25. David Montgomery had 12. Bijan Robinson had 11. Tyreek Hill had 10. And Kansas City had 28. The only reason why I survived is because the Ravens shut down Miami. And that was ginormous. So I ultimately won my fantasy because based on the first 3 players alone. Okay, Ellie, that's enough. But ultimately, I have to be very proud of this performance by Love. Jordan Love is going to be a superstar in later weeks, so you gotta be so excited for this guy. I mean, Green Bay, if there's any Packer fans watching this, you have your future quarterback. That man can play, and he balled out against Minnesota. So, got to give credit where credit is due. I picked him up as my replacement to Justin Herbert. He was one of my best decisions all year long, besides getting Isaiah Pacheco. So, ultimately, this is how I won my championship. It was in a blowout against my opponent. And so I'm very happy. This is my second time winning in this league. I won in 2020 when I had Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill on my roster. So in my opinion, I like that roster more than this one. But this one was much more consistent down the line. So this one would probably have beaten that last one overall. So yeah, this is my fantasy season. I am the victor. After weeks of preparing or months of preparing for fantasy, it paid off. I won the championship. It feels good. Now it's time to get to the Q&As. All right, so the first question comes from Patrick on TikTok. He says, who are the 3 most likely teams to come out of the NFC this year ranked 1 to 3? So I said that the Niners would 100% come out of the NFC. They're going to the Super Bowl in my opinion because I don't think anyone in the NFC can truly beat San Francisco. But if I had to give it 2 and 3, I would probably go with the Cowboys at 2, even though it seems unconventional because of recent playoff histories and the fact that they're not really good against ranked teams. But if they're at home for the majority and they are the number 2 seed, I don't think anyone's going to beat them in Dallas. But then you have to travel to San Francisco, and that's where I think the Niners win that matchup. And then number 3, I think I have to go with Detroit. I kind of want to go with Philadelphia, but the slump is so bad. So I have to go with Detroit, and I believe that the Lions are, well, they're the most improved team besides the Cleveland Browns. But Detroit, the way they're coached, and I watched it against the Cowboys. I'm a big Cowboys fan. I'm super impressed with their coach and what their players are able to do. They are very nitty and gritty, and they show it. They got some attitude. And that team is a very great candidate for being a dark horse team in the playoffs. So San Francisco, Dallas, Detroit. Those are my 3. The next question comes from my cousin Bryson. Will the Pistons go 2-80? They already won a game. But if you wanted me to guess what their record's going to be, I think the real question you got to ask is, will they break 10 wins this year? I'm going to say no. I don't think that the Pistons will go to have 10 wins this year. They're lucky they finally broke that streak and got to 3, but that team is so bad. So they're not going 2-80, but they're definitely not breaking 10 wins in my opinion. So get ready for them to have the first overall pick unless the draft screws them over. Next one comes from Jason. Who has won more Grand Slam titles, Serena Williams or Roger Federer? Okay, so this isn't opinionated, but this is a factual question. I'm trying to think. I want to say Roger, but the competition between Roger and Serena Williams is far different. When Serena was in her prime, I felt there is nobody in the world that can like touch her as far as her legacy goes. So I will probably go with Serena Williams, but I'm going to look it up. Okay, yeah. Serena won 3 more than Roger Federer. She's at 23, and Roger Federer's at 20. So yeah, I was right with Serena. It's just the level of competition between the two. I mean, for Federer, you had Djokovic, you had Nadal, you had Murray, or Murphy. I don't remember. But there's tough competition across the board. And now with Djokovic being the last of like the big dogs in the fight, I think. I don't know if Aaron Murphy or Aaron Murray is still in there. But you got some tough competition. Some young guys. You got Alvarez from Spain. You got the guy from Russia. I mean, you got some tough competition coming in. But yeah, Williams over Federer as far as Grand Slam titles go. The next question comes from Riley, who I actually played in the championship game for fantasies, and me and him are really good friends. He said, who do you think should win the MVP this year, and if you think a quarterback is deserving of winning it, given that it's been a down year across the league for quarterbacks this year? So it has been a down year, but you know that the NFL tends to give the MVP to quarterbacks. I can't remember the last time a running back won MVP. I think it was Adrian Peterson. And I can't remember the last time a wide receiver won the MVP. But as far as who I think is going to win MVP, I'm surprised that Dak Prescott is completely out of the conversation after these 2 weeks, because he did not have as bad as a game as Brock Purdy did against Baltimore. But I think they're going to give it to Lamar Jackson, and I think he is the most deserving of the MVP, because when I think about the MVP, most valuable player, is who is this team's lifeline? And Baltimore fans, I'm going to have to criticize y'all for a second. You guys were dogging on Lamar Jackson when he missed the playoff game against the Bengals last year, but y'all weren't giving him respect to begin with, and he was injured. And now that you guys gave him this contract, now you see he is your best player. So to me, Lamar Jackson is the downright MVP, and he's probably going to sit out against Pittsburgh. But Raven fans, let this be a lesson. Do not disrespect Lamar Jackson like that again, because he is your team's lifeline. And what y'all did that offseason, he deserved better. So you're lucky you kept him, because he might be the only reason why you guys make a Super Bowl this year. But remains to be seen. And the last question comes from my friend Jacob. It's actually a three-parter. He says, who do you think will win the college football playoffs? I want to know your top 3 NBA teams to win the NBA Finals this year, and your top 3 teams to win college basketball. So the first one's college football playoffs. It's between Michigan and Washington. I'm going to have to go with Washington. Because even though I was super impressed with Michigan's win and very happy, despite being a Notre Dame fan, I was happy Michigan won because I still believed Alabama didn't deserve it. I would say that Washington's Penix, I mean, that guy has a rocket and he is a heat-seeking missile. He threw all over Texas, and Texas had one of the best defenses in the league or in college football that year. And Penix ripped them in shreds. So I think he can do it to Michigan as well. I'm going to go with Washington to win the national championship. I really hope so. It'd be great for the Pac-12 to have a champion in their last season, potentially. So yeah, we're going to go with Washington to win this one. The second one was your top 3 NBA teams to win the finals this year. I'm going to go with Denver at number 1 because they still have Jokic, they still have Murray, and in the playoffs, those guys are beasts. They are playoff material. Secondly, I'm going to go with Boston because Boston, like, across the line, when you go Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, it's such a loaded lineup that has the opportunity to be big. And Porzingis is having one heck of a year. I think he's going to be an all-star. The third team, I was going to say the Bucks. The problem is, when I watch the Bucks, maybe I've set too high of an expectation when they got Damian Lillard, but I'm just not impressed with the Milwaukee Bucks. Right now, I'm actually going to go with the Oklahoma City Thunder as a dark horse team. Because, man, the Thunder got it together. Shea, Holmgren, this team is loaded and they're young. Which means these next few years, Thunder fans, you guys are in your prime. And if there's any time to win a championship, it's going to be in these next 3 to 4 years. So, get it going. I think the Thunder are 3. And for college basketball, I don't watch a lot of college basketball. But if there's a team that needs it the most, it has to be, and I'm saying it has to be Purdue. Because, my God, Purdue needs this more than any other team in basketball, and it's not even close. These last 2 tournaments were just bad. So, I'm going to say the Purdue Boilermakers, but it's going to be rough. That's really one I don't know because I don't know college basketball that much as I know college football. But I'll go with the Boilermakers because I know they need it, and they need it for their sake because they ain't going to keep their players forever. And while you got these big guys that are future NBA prospects, you need to win with them. It's now or never. And that'll be it for the Q&As and this entire episode. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm glad to be back, so thank you guys for tuning in. Go follow me on all my social medias, especially TikTok. I tend to post on TikTok a lot. And please send me some questions in TikTok. I'll have some time open to create a TikTok where I say, "Oh, leave your questions down below, and I'll answer them in the next episode." So yeah, you guys do that for me, and that'll be it. So I hope you guys have a great day. Take care, and goodbye.